So my simple question to start with for today's class is that, so what is data? So what is data? So you must be using the term data, right? Yeah, so data is a information. So define information. What is qualified to be a information? What is data? What you're saying is data is
Information.
data is information. Okay, what is information? Right? So anything and everything in world, today's world is data. So may it be numbers, data, photos, data, text, data, videos, data, documents such as files, PDF, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. So everything is data. Everything is
Data.
data, right? So when we say data, so as I explained, everything is basically, okay, where am I? So hold on a second, just where did that go? Right. So everything is basically data when it comes to a computer. So in for us, we have, like, we can say, like, there are numbers, there is a text. Text is nothing but the alphabets I'm talking about. And then there are photos, there are videos, there are documents, everything is data. So for us, we can say, like, everything is for us, number is a different, photo is a different thing, text is a different, video is a different, document is a different. But for computer, all of this is termed as data. And how can it store that data within the computer? The computer universally understands only one language. What is it? Right? It is a binary. Computer can only understand a binary data, which is 0 and
One.
1.
One.
So it basically stores internally everything as zeros and ones in the format of zeros and ones. So the though we have, like, different ways of, like, numbers, photos, videos, and etc. But for computer, it is all going to be a binary data. So it is all going to be 0 and 1 eventually to a computer. Now, if computer understands 0 and 1, now how does it understand a Python programming language? Or how does it understand what is a photo? How does it understand what is a video? How does it understand what is a number? How does it understand what is a document? Yes, you have several things, but how does it understand? So every software application that you are installing on your laptop is basically, like, that application will take care of converting the respective data, which is photo, video, number, whatever, to the language that the computer understand, to the language that computer understands. So in fact, that is what we have done now. So I can, in order to learn Python programming language, the first step, what we did was we installed the Python software onto your computer. Yes. Now
Yeah.
that software, right? So once we start writing something in Python, that software takes care of converting whatever we have, whatever the program that we write, right? It basically converts that to the language that the computer understands, which is eventually the zeros and ones.
One.
Okay. Now, same goes with any software. Like, if you want to play a video on your laptop, you would actually require a software to play the video. Yes, you might be using something like VLC as a common player or MX player or whatever, right? So in order to open photos, you would use a certain photos application. So in order to open or create any documents, you would actually use a Microsoft application software, right? So if you want to do anything on the computer, so basically it has to have a particular software which can help you to write in a human readable format, and that software will take care of converting that to a computer readable format. Okay, are we clear so far?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yeah,
now so we have installed Python. Now, when we were working through the Python, so I did write something like A is equal to 10. A is equal to 10. So what do we mean by this? What do we mean by this? I did write something called A equal to 10. So in the yesterday's class, I talked about two important concepts. One is called RAM,
And wrong.
right? RAM and
Wrong. Wrong. Consistent.
processor, and also ROM,
Wrong.
right? RAM is what?
Temporary permanent.
Right.
Random
Random
access memory.
memory. ROM is,
Read only memory.
and processor is,
CPU.
right? So your central processing unit,
CPU.
basically.
Memory unit.
There are three things in the yesterday's class that I told about. Right.
Hmm.
So here, when I say A equal to 10, which means this A is nothing but a variable which is holding the value 10, which is holding the value 10.
10.
Now, where does this now this I have written with help of a Python program. So Python software where I have used a particular shell called ideally, where I have just written the statement and hit on enter, and it just went to the next line without throwing any error. It did not show any error. It was able to understand what I have written. It was able to understand what I have written. So what we mean by this is A is a variable and 10 is a value that I'm assigning to a variable called A, and equal to here. This is the equal to, which is basically a assignment operator, where when I say A equal to 10, meaning we are assigning value 10 to a variable called A. Okay, so now where does computer store this information? This is the information that needs to be stored somewhere, because only if it stores, and if I say print A, it is going to give me the value called 10. This is going to give print the value called 10. So if this print A has to print the value that we have stored in it, then this information, this piece of data should have stored somewhere in your computer. So all such information will get stored in RAM. All this information will be stored in RAM. It was not stored in your ROM. So ROM is your hard disk, right? It doesn't get stored in your ROM, but this information is a temporary information and this will be stored in your RAM. This information will be stored in RAM. Are we clear? That is how this, when I say print A, it goes to a particular RAM, finds that data. What do I have in A? It gets that value and prints it for us so that we can see the output. Okay, so now let us understand what I mean by that. So I'm going to repeat the same thing. We said A equal to 10, and let us say name is equal to John. So this is a number. This is called a string. This is a text, right? It's an alphabet. So alphabets, generally we have to store them in the double quotes here. We will see further on what is a string and all of that. We have to, any text has to be enclosed within the double quote here. Okay. Now what happens when we are writing, and when Python understands this and tries to execute it. So when it is executing, as I told, this information will be stored somewhere in your memory. Let us say this is your, let us say this is your memory. So from now on, whenever I say memory, I always mean it is RAM. I always mean it is RAM. So 10 will be stored somewhere in your memory, somewhere in your RAM memory, and value John will also be stored somewhere in your memory, and this A would be pointing to this address, and this name will be pointing to this address. Now this is very important, the term that I'm using as address here. So just like, every one of us have a certain address where we are resided. So if someone asks where does Shrikant live, so people who know me, they can say like, Shrikant lives in Bangalore. Bangalore is, let us say, my address. Okay. And in the same way, in computer also, if it is storing particular data, it will always have a address associated to the place it is stored, right? So always whenever we store a information, so this is all hidden in the handled by the Python programming language. We don't have to worry about what is the address, how we get address and all of that. So we don't have to worry about it. Your language will take care of this thing where it is keeping track of the address or a memory location of a data, and it will always associate itself with a variable. Now when you say a equal to 10, this 10 is basically stored somewhere in the memory, and that address of that memory is basically stored, basically your a. And the name is also, name John is also stored somewhere in your memory, and the address of it is nothing but the variable name. So here in this case it is going to be name, right? Now if I say print a, now this a will go check in the memory. Okay, what do I have here? So we have 10, so this is going to print 10. If I say print
Name.
name, okay, so it goes and checks in the memory. Okay, boss, what do I have here? Okay, so it is John, so and this is going to print John. Are we clear? So
Name.
always anything that you want to store, whenever you are writing a program, that program information, and when it is being executed, all the data that we create, it is going to be created in the RAM memory. It is going to be created in the random access memory. And whenever it is getting created, it is going to give the memory address. It is going to give the memory address. Right, so we don't have to worry about what is the memory address and all. So it is basically an address. So you're basically okay. So your um, RAM, let us say it is of 8 GB, right? 8 GB, and your variable here, the value 10 is basically like, to bytes, right? In 8 GB, the 2 bytes information can be stored anywhere, right? The 2 bytes information and that 8 GB can be stored anywhere. So whenever it is getting stored, it is going to return the address. It is going to return the address. Now, if I have to explain this, if you are a person, that is a value, and the name that we our parents have given us, you can treat that as a variable name. Okay, are we clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so variable is nothing but, now tell me, like, you just frame a statement and tell me what is a variable. Variables are used to store data. We can just say the statement, variables are used to store data, right?
Number.
Using variables, we can access data. Using variables, we can access data. So you can store data and you can also access data. Are we clear? Okay, that's fine. So variables are used to store data, and once you are storing something, obviously you should be able to access the data as well. Even if you want to access the data, so you need variables are the one which helps us to access the data as well. Okay.